Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today we are going to be thinking about Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare, and I'm providing you with a walking, talking mock on the theme of hate. In front of you now are all of the key events that take place in the play. So there are 30 of them. We're going to be thinking about some of those key moments today. But if you're not familiar with them, please feel free to have a look at the guide to each act and the entire play in 10 minutes, videos which are available on the channel. Okay, so here we have all of the characters, the key characters from Romeo and Juliet. So you can take a minute now if you want to pause and think how you can link the theme of hate to each of the characters. Otherwise, we're going to move on and I'm going to tell you all about who we're going to be writing about today. Okay, so we've got Montague and Capulet. They hate each other, so we'll be exploring that. We've got Romeo and Mercutio and Tibble, young people who are all involved in that fatal conflict that takes place in Act 3. We've also got Juliet, so we can think about how she is also a character who demonstrates and acts on hate in the play. So these are the moments that we're going to be exploring in our essay today. So we're going to be writing about the fighting that takes place, and Romeo's involved in that, as is Mercutio and Tybalt. We've got love that turns to hate, and hate that at the end of the play turns to love, that's shown between Capulet and Montague. We've also got Juliet. So when she ends her life, she hates life. She shows hatred towards her father when he wants her to marry Paris and she refuses to. And at one point, when she finds out that Romeo's killed Tibble, she talks about her hatred for him that's mixed with love. She has some very confusing feelings. But in order to keep our essay simple today, we're going to ditch Juliet and we're just going to think about these characters here. So we're going to be looking at the young people that are involved in the fighting in Verona, and we're also going to have a little think about the parents too. The first thing that we do when we are in the exam is we think about how we're going to approach that question, that essay plan. So we're going to start with analysis of two quotes from the extract. I'll be showing you an extract in a moment. You need to choose a couple of quotes from that to show that you've engaged with it. And once we've done that, we're going to be thinking about Tybalt's reaction to Romeo at the ball. So that's a moment where he wants to challenge Romeo. He's a character that is driven by his hatred for the Montagues. When we've explored that, we're going to think about Romeo's reaction to Romeo's refusal to fight Tybalt. So when Tybalt finally does challenge Romeo, Romeo refuses to fight, and there's hatred towards that decision, but also hatred towards Tybalt in that moment in the play. We're then going to think about Romeo acting on his hatred for Tybalt when Tybalt has killed Mercutio. He kills Tybalt. We're looking at Capulet and how his love for Juliet turns to hate when she refuses to marry Paris. And then we're going to end our essay by thinking about how that hate is gone at the end of the play and what we can take away from that. Okay, so here's the extract. Relatively short one today for our purposes, but when you're in the exam, you have got time to read it carefully and think about a couple of key quotes that you're going to use and analyse. So here's the question. Starting with this extract, explore how Shakespeare presents hatred in Romeo and Juliet. And here is the extract there. It's from Act 1, Scene 1. We've got Benvolio and Tibble that are in conflict with each other. Benvolio wants to stop the fighting from taking place, and Tibble is instigating further conflict. So we've got this contrast between the two characters there that we're going to explore. So let's move on now. If you want to pause and have a read through the extract, feel free to, but I'm going to move us on and we're going to start our essay, writing our essay. All you need is a paper and a pen today. So let's make a start. So we're going to start with the extract. Here's a really simple point to make. Tybalt is a character who is driven by hatred and pride. So we're definitely trying to get the word hatred into every paragraph of the essay that we're writing to show that we're clearly answering the question. So that's the point that we're going to make. So you're going to be able to copy that and steal that word for word. And here is a reference from the extract. So he says, "Turn thee, Benvolio, look upon thy death." And to help you with your writing the essay, here are a few things for you to think about as you analyse this key moment. So we've got Tybalt using imperative verbs, turn and look. He speaks using imperatives throughout the play. What does this show about the character? And also, how does this moment provide a dramatic contrast to the prologue? Prologue is written in sonnet form using iambic pentameter, reflecting the theme of love, and then we go straight into blank verse and conflict with Act 1, Scene 1. So think about what Shakespeare is trying to talk to us about, the themes of the play through his choices of structure here. If you do that in the 5 minutes I'm about to give you, you've got a second point and a bit of a reference to analyse here. So we can say in the play, hate is shown by frustrated adolescents desperate to be men or desperate to be adults. So in free verse, Samson says, draw if you be men. And that's something that you can analyse there, and you can think about what impression of young people Shakespeare chooses to give us right at the beginning of the play. I'm giving you 5 minutes now to get that analysis done. You'll hear from me when your time is up. Okay, now we're going to think about Tibble at the ball. So at the ball, Tibble wants to fight Romeo, driven by hatred. He says, "Fetch me my rapier." And here's the analysis that you can use today. He says, again, speaking in imperative verbs, you can explore that and reflect on how a pattern is being created to represent this character. He thinks Romeo's there to cause conflict. Why is he wrong? And he doesn't speak using iambic pentameter. How does this provide a contrast to Romeo in this scene, and for what purpose? So if you can remember the quote from Romeo when the first time he sees Juliet, he says, "Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright." That language is poetic, and he's speaking using iambic pentameter. How is Shakespeare drawing a contrast between Tibble and Romeo, and for what reason? If you get that done in the 5 minutes that I'm going to give you, you can take this further, and you can think about Capulet's reaction to Tibble. So that makes us realise that the adults are less hateful than we may have thought. He tells Tibble that Romeo is a well-governed youth, and you can analyse that. You're governed by your parents, so what is it that Capulet's showing us about the way that he really feels about Montague? You've got 5 minutes to provide this section, to write this section of your essay, and when you've done that, you'll hear from me. Okay, we move on now to Mercutio. So he hates Romeo's refusal to fight and demonstrates hatred when he fights Tibble. He says calm, dishonourable, vile submission. And here's the analysis. Once you've made that point and you've included the evidence in this paragraph, you've got these questions to answer to provide that great analysis. So how is Mercutio different to Romeo here? Is showing your enemies love vile? And your family name and reputation was of great importance to Elizabethans. May they have empathised with Mercutio here. And how does he react to being fatally injured? He doesn't take any responsibility for that. What is it that he says or does after he is injured? You've got about 5 minutes to write this paragraph. You'll hear from me when your time is up. Okay, after Mercutio's death at Tybalt's hands, Romeo then kills Tybalt. So here's the point that we're going to make. So you can copy this down again, word for word. Romeo acts out of hatred when he kills Tybalt. So simple point, and I'm using that word hatred in there to make sure that I'm clearly answering the question throughout my response. He says, fire-eyed fury, be my conduct now. And here's the analysis that you're going to provide. So by answering these questions, you'll be showing that you can analyse the text and Shakespeare's methods. He uses fire as a motif for Romeo. Lots of quotes and lots of moments involving Romeo involve fire. So what's he telling us about the character here? What does the use of iambic pentameter show us? Is he in two minds about fighting Tybalt, or is he filled with certainty? I think the iambic pentameter there is to signify the idea that Romeo is filled with certainty. And what's his reaction when Tybalt dies? Does he take any responsibility for his actions? Does he feel any regret? Or does he blame chance? The answer is he blames chance. If you can think of the quote for that moment, even better. You got 5 minutes now to provide that analysis and write about this key moment. You'll hear from me when your time is up. Okay, you've had your 5 minutes writing about Romeo and his killing of Tibble. We're going to move on now to Capulet. So Capulet shows that he loves Juliet at the start of the play. He says, "Earth have swallowed all my hopes but she," to Paris. So what is Earth a metaphor for here? And is he driven by his love for Juliet or hatred for the Montagues? We've heard all about this conflict between the families in the prologue, but the first time we meet Capulet, we realise that it isn't necessarily hatred that drives him. What is it that is the most focal point of his life? And how would Elizabethans feel towards Capulet and why? He is trying to find a suitable person for Juliet to marry so that she can have a safe and secure future. That's what would have been expected of parents in his position. So you can think about different ways that we can interpret the character to show that you can understand different ways of approaching the text. You have got about 5 minutes to write about Capulet here. You'll hear from me when your time is up. Okay, you've had some time now to write about Capulet and our first impressions of him. We're now going to really show that we understand the different sides to Capulet, and we're going to talk about how his love turns to hate when his daughter Juliet refuses to marry Paris. So there's the point you're going to make, and there's the evidence to show that hatred. He says, hang, beg, starve, die in the streets to Juliet when she refuses to marry Paris towards the end of the play. How is his use of language and the way he speaks a contrast to the poetic way he speaks about Juliet at the beginning of the play? Explore how this language is different to show there's a change in him. He's a character that demonstrates both love and hate in the play. And would Elizabethans be able to understand and empathise with his reaction here? We look at him as quite a forthright and demanding father that doesn't understand his daughter. Is that the only way that we can view this character? Got about 5 minutes to write this paragraph. You'll hear from me again when your time is up. Okay, you've had about 5 minutes to write that paragraph. We're now heading towards the end of the play and the end of our essay. So here's the point that we're going to make at the start of this final paragraph. At the end, the hatred between the Capulets and the Montagues ends. Montague tells Capulet he will raise a statue of pure gold for Juliet. And we're going to end here with a bit of a conclusion that asks a few questions about the wider play. So is it the hatred between the parents or the hatred between the young people that you blame for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet? Or maybe a bit of both. But share your own opinion. Whose responsibility do you think it is for the deaths of Romeo and Juliet and their demise at the end of the play? So you can conclude with a really wonderful, sort of poignant, thoughtful comment and share your own opinion about the play. You've got about 5 minutes to do that, and you'll hear from me when your time is up. Okay, you should have by now written yourself a really fantastic essay. If you've managed to write each of those paragraphs, you will have shown a really wide understanding of the play. We've definitely included some comments about the form and structure that Shakespeare chooses as an important method, and we've analysed language as well as exploring different ways that we can interpret the characters, and we've talked about the ways that the Elizabethan audience might have interpreted the play as well. If you want to take your revision further, why not check out the guides to each of the 5 acts and the entire play in 10 minutes, and can you recall my 30 key moments? Have a go at other walking talking mocks that are available on my channel. There are other ones available for Romeo and Juliet, as well as other texts and power and conflict poetry, as well as all of English language for AQA. This essay started with a plan. Another thing you can do is plan for a range of essay questions using your knowledge of the play. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content, and feel free to ask for something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep revising.